It's Thursday, the 21st of March, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories in 5 minutes, 5 big stories actually, so we better get going with story number 1. The meeting of Foreign Minister Penny Wong and her Chinese counterpart Wang Yi has come under fire over claims of quid pro quo deals in trade.
The two met yesterday morning after Australia had dropped restrictions on Chinese-made wind turbines, something Senator Wong said had nothing to do with Canberra's push to allow Australian wine back into the Chinese market without huge tariffs. Maybe, but Chinese media said it was a good gesture ahead of the talks. The discussion between the two foreign ministers included Australia's concerns about human rights violations in the region and unsafe conduct at sea. Senator Wong also told her counterpart that Australians were shocked by the suspended death sentence handed to jailed Chinese-Australian academic Yang Hangjun and said the government would continue to advocate on his behalf. Senator Wong said that the two countries want to engage and cooperate where they can, knowing that there will sometimes be disagreements. Ahead of the meeting, Mr. Wang said it was important for both sides to stay committed to mutual respect.
And Senator Wong all but confirmed the number 2 person in Beijing after Xi Jinping, Premier Li Qiang, will visit Australia later in the year.
It would certainly demonstrate the improved relations between the two countries. Maybe the lobster and beef farmers will win a breakthrough in their trade stalemate if Mr. Li turns up. Mr. Huang yesterday was due to meet Australian CEOs and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. Today he's scheduled to visit with former Prime Minister Paul Keating in what I reckon will be the most interesting meeting of the lot, Michael.
I suspect you might be right. All right, moving on to story number 2. Republican candidate for the upcoming presidential election, Donald Trump, has blasted former Prime Minister and Australia's top diplomat in the US, Kevin Rudd, calling him nasty and saying you won't be in the job for long.
In an interview with former British right-wing politician Nigel Farage, Trump says of Rudd, and I quote, "I don't know much about him. I heard he was a little bit nasty." And then he went on to say, "I hear he's not the brightest bulb. If he's at all hostile, he will not be there long." The US president can actually revoke an ambassador's credentials, rendering them powerless in Washington. Of course, Trump needs to win the November poll against Joe Biden. That doesn't seem to be a factor in many of his conversations these days. There's a history between the two. Rudd has previously called Trump the most destructive president in history and nuts. Late yesterday, the Prime Minister was scrambling to defend Mr. Rudd, who he appointed, saying he'd be able to work with Donald Trump. Australia's ambassador to the US under Malcolm Turnbull and then Scott Morrison during the Trump years was former Federal Treasurer Joe Hockey, who's generally considered to have done a pretty good job in very tough circumstances.
On to story number 3. One way to make housing in Australia more affordable is to up the density of homes across the nation, particularly in the capital cities.
That's a finding from the Domain Price Per Square Metre report for 2024. Domain's latest data shows that house prices per square metre and unit prices per square metre in capital cities have been trending upwards over the past 5 years, driven by higher prices and smaller floor or land sizes. There has been a shrinking of land sizes due to densification and rising land premiums. What that does is creates more opportunity for home ownership because high density translates to increased affordability. While Sydney and Melbourne have the highest price per square metre, the strongest growth over the past 5 years in houses has come from Brisbane, Adelaide and Hobart. Perth's shown the strongest growth over the past year or so. In terms of units, prices per square metre in Sydney and Melbourne over the past 5 years have been flat, while they've been up between 10 and 47% in the other capital cities.
Story number 4, Bentley, the luxury car manufacturer, has reported its second largest annual profit as almost 3/4 of buyers splurge on custom features, things like wood trim and bespoke paint jobs.
7 out of 10 Bentley buyers last year paid for personalised features worth in excess of £40,000, while several commissioned so many custom add-ons that they doubled the price of their cars. Now, Bentley, in Australian dollars, goes for between $400,000 and $500,000, so they're the numbers we're talking about. In fact, one customer requested wood from his own forest be used in the interior. Yeah, while another put £400,000 worth of carbon fibre onto the vehicle, according to a report in the Financial Times. In fact, the CEO, Adrian Hallmark, he described the situation as jaw-dropping. Fair enough.
All right, last one. Story number 5. Spotify has released its annual Loud and Clear report, and it shows that 329,000 songs were each streamed at least 1 million times in 2023.
Spotify has 600 million users worldwide, resulting in trillions of streams. The report says that 80% of the 1250 artists generating at least $1 million on Spotify, a figure that's tripled since 2017, are not household names and did not feature a hit on Spotify's top 50 global chart. Now, last year, Spotify paid $9 billion to the music industry, and that figure has tripled over the past 6 years. The number of artists generating at least $1 million or $100,000 or $10,000 has also tripled in that time period. And the number of independent artists, either DIY or signed to independent labels, has soared and now receives about half of Spotify's payments. Rule of thumb, Michael, for you, if you want to make $1 million a year on Spotify, you need 4 to 5 million monthly listeners and about 20 to 25 million streams.
Good to know. There we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 21st of March, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to check out our sister podcast, How Do They Afford That? All about making your money work harder for you. This week's episode is all about the top 10 good money habits of successful people. I'll put a link in today's show notes. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.